Hi everybody. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to do a historical ID for my history course. The topic that I chose for this one is gladiators in ancient Rome, and I'm going to take you through the steps on how to be successful and do your historical ID to a very high degree of effectiveness. So here's a Clio database, our best friend, the Clio database, and the topic we're doing is gladiators. So I'm just going to search gladiators in the search box. And the things you're looking for when you want to do a historical ID are what your topic is, when it took place, a couple facts about it, historical significance, and finally, whether or not it represents a reoccurring theme in history. So here's Gladiators, first article that comes up, and as you can see, it's kind of just a short one. So in order for you to get the full picture of what you're going to be writing your historical ID on, you need to click around on a couple of the links. And the link I found the most helpful was this link on the gladiatorial games. And it's a lot longer, as you can see, as the one that was just up. And obviously reading that and reading this one is the perfect way to get you started. So I opened a new document titled Historical ID on Gladiators, and I have a little bit of my information in my head. And I know a couple of the facts that I can start with. The first thing I read in this article was the first sentence, and luckily enough, this sentence basically was what the first thing on my historical ID needed to be. And the first thing is who or what your topic is, in this case, gladiators. The sentence you can see here basically outlines exactly that question. They were professional fighters, condemned criminals, slaves, or prisoners who entertained the Roman public by engaging in mortal combat. That means essentially it was a fight to the death. And I paraphrase that in my own words, and making sure I'm not copying, obviously, because that's illegal. But as soon as you have the main idea down, that's essentially all you need. The next thing that you're going to be focusing on for your historical ID is when it took place. So back to my article, even without going anywhere, the date that they have right up here is 170 BCE before Common Era. So that's easily put in. Now you have to look back. Is there any other dates or important time periods that they talk about in here? Because having one fact is good, but you also want to kind of give your reader a little broader scope of things. So as you can see here, it says that gladiator fights first appeared at funerals by 3rd century BCE. They came to the Roman Republic. Okay, so that gives you a kind of broader idea. They were around before 170 BCE, but it wasn't until that point that they became popular. So you can add that to your historical ID. All right. The next thing on your historical ID is a couple facts to give your reader an idea of what exactly it is you're talking about. Obviously, in this article, there's lots of things. They've tried to incorporate everything about gladiators, but in order to get the full picture and get some really solid facts, you need to click on all the links. So under gladiatorial games, I found a lot of the facts that I used in my historical ID. I found important points as to what gladiators were, what they did, and a few things just to clear up how they fought and why they fought. So the facts that I got were the men fighting were free men or slaves forced into the ring. Professional gladiators were trained in schools using chains, nets, swords, and spears. If they were convicted prisoners and often slaves, they were not given a weapon, and obviously this was a lot more enjoyable for the public just to watch some helpless person get slaughtered. And winning gladiators gained fame and social status, and an example of that was the famous gladiator Spartacus, which I will touch on just a little bit later. So as you can see, these are basic points, that open up your knowledge about the, the topic you're talking about. The facts, they don't go into huge depth. They're not a paragraph, they're just simply points that emphasize exactly what you're talking about. Possibly the longest section and the most important section on your historical ID is the significance that your topic poses to the rest of history. Now, this is something that you're going to need to think a little bit about. These facts are not simply going to be in the Clio database for you to put into your own words. This is something that you need to do yourself. You need to make connections yourself. Even though you are doing some connecting yourself, the things you put down in significance need to be based on fact. So the things I'm writing in significance don't simply come from, what I think of things. It's facts that I've used to prove a point. And they're facts that you can usually find in the article or in any of the connecting articles. Now, I know about the gladiator Spartacus because that's a name, that's a household name, a common knowledge about Roman gladiators. So since it's not really in this article, I'm just going to search up Spartacus and see what comes up. So right away you can see on the results page a little synopsis of who Spartacus was, and he was the commander of a massive armed slave rebellion, and it automatically says here the gladiator Spartacus. So I know from that right away, and I can just use those facts simply to put in the fact that gladiators had used their fame and influence to lead important movements. And I mentioned that Spartacus' slave uprising without even going into the article. I get some facts that I can use in my historical ID. And you need to remember your ID doesn't simply come from the one article that you're supposed to be writing about. You need to do more research in order to get the whole picture, in order to make sure your research is complete. If you didn't, you'd have a really narrow mindset, you would not know the significance, and your facts would be limited. A couple more facts I found were also on the Clio database. And if you want to search back in with your results, you can narrow them down if you want to look at simply just images or things like that. Another way to look for images or other clues to the whole picture is apart from the search page, beside the article you're looking at is usually a related entries box. And they give you places, other articles, images, and this images is what I'm looking at. I'm going to click gladiatorial fight. So you can see here, you automatically know this is a mosaic by the tiles, and it also says mosaic right here. You can tell that gladiators were very important because there's a whole bunch of pictures here that are Roman art, and you can tell that they were very important to Roman life. And that's another thing you can add to your significance. If you can find lots of pictures, you know that that was an important part of history. Finally, the last part of your historical ID is the theme section. Now this, if you think the significance, you needed to think a little bit about the theme is where you really need to put your brain to work because you're not going to find anything at all on the Clio database about theme usually because simply those articles are facts and they're write-ups and facts about articles and there's not much modern day connections. So looking back on your historical ID, you need to start realizing some patterns. And the thing I've noticed when talking about gladiators is that it seems that they were really popular, obviously, because of their significance and the art we looked at earlier. So that means that people enjoyed having them around. And another type of thing similar to gladiators today could be wrestling or boxing. So here I can make a statement, which is a personal opinion, and it also makes sense based on the facts I've found. The fact that since ancient times, people have always liked watching fighting, no matter if it was between animals or humans. And then I can just make an inference about what the population thinks, an outlet for inner violence, something like that. So I did a little bit more research about popular combat conflict sports that people enjoyed since gladiatorial games. So nowadays it's boxing and wrestling, and back then it was gladiators, but what came in the middle? And I found out that the Middle Ages there was jousting and sword fighting, but more commonly you see movies where big jousting tournaments. The winner usually gets the hand of marriage of a princess or something like that, and they were always very popular spectator sports. So once you find out a little bit about other parts of history, you can add that into a theme because if the same thing, the same sort of thing is happening again, then obviously you're on the right track. So, there you have it. I just took you through the steps to creating a historical ID. If you found this helpful, then I'm glad, and if you don't really care about gladiators, then I guess I should have done a different topic. But there it is. I've taught you how to do the research, how to read the articles, what to look for each of your things, and how to put it all together to look amazing for Mr. Baker to mark well. Thanks.